Well, it was a slow start for Middlesbrough last season, but once Michael Carrick took charge in October, they surged up the league and even entered at one stage automatic promotion contention before dropping in form late on and losing in the playoffs. In theory, the form produced under Michael Carrick suggests that they could be ready to launch a sustained automatic promotion bid over the course of the full campaign this year, but they've lost key loanees, and recruitment-wise, it's been hopeful, but also a little bit left field. So, have they got the tools? Have they got the players to push for a return to the Premier League this time around? Well, to discuss all these things and more, I'm delighted to be joined by Dana Malt and Jonny Bullock from the Boro Breakdown. How are you, people? How are you?
All good, Gab, all good. It's been a busy week. You've got us at a good time, actually, because it was quite quiet before last week, wasn't it, Jonny? And now I think our heads have just returned after being spinning for the past 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, I don't want to look at Scout ever again, to be honest. Just from the amount of players that we've brought in. Yeah, but it's I was gonna say good time to catch us, Gab. To be honest, yeah, good time.
Absolutely, yeah. I like to schedule the championship deep dives a little bit later in the summer because I think the business does tend to happen at this level a little bit later. With that in mind, just a quick public service announcement: I'm covering all 72 clubs between mid-June and mid-July on EFL Debate with the summer deep dives. We're also available on YouTube and on Spotify. So if you're watching or listening to this on either of those platforms, do give us a subscribe. That would help us out a lot. And check out the other videos once you're done with this one. Dana, how do you reflect on the progress made under Michael Carrick last season?
Unprecedented, to be honest, because when he came in, I did not expect it. I thought that we would probably finish the season mid-table and then go from there next season. And basically, last season, I was expecting there to be building blocks put in place. But Michael Carrick has come in, and to be honest, under Chris Wilder, we never had a bad team. I think it was just that he was obviously looking elsewhere, and then things just unravelled on and off the pitch. But Michael Carrick just picked us up, and little tweaks here and there in regards to the system, a lot of positional fluidity, and we've just seen this team just rise from there and really improve and probably get back to the level that we previously expected from them. So it was unexpected, but caught me kind of off guard, but really pleasantly surprised with what we've seen under Michael Carrick so far.
Yeah, Jonny, to what extent do you think the turnaround under Michael Carrick was due to the subtle tactical tweaks that Dana mentioned? I imagine she was alluding to changing from the back three to the back four and offering a little bit more balance there. And how much do you think it was kind of variance in terms of maybe you'd had a couple of decent performances under Chris Wilder and not quite got the rewards of it, and maybe you kind of got a little bit more fortune under Carrick? How much of that was kind of coming your way anyway?
Yeah, there's loads to unpack, really, I think, with Michael Carrick. And, we always look at the on-pitch side of things to show that, well, to say, results have improved, so that's the only thing that's changed. We've changed system, which is really good. He's brought back some players, and we look a bit more comfortable. But I think take that out of your mind for a second, because I think there was a lot of work behind the scenes getting done, which kind of got these players back on board again. When you have a manager and a coaching staff that don't really want to invest in you as a person and as a team, then you're probably not going to give them 100% most of the time. Now, I'm not going to say that Boro players didn't do that. I'm just saying that the commitment probably wasn't as strong as it could be. But when we spoke to Chuba Akpom a couple of weeks ago, he was mentioning around when Leo came in, he had like a lion on the whiteboards, and he was saying, "I want you to be like lions when you're playing this next game." And we end up beating Wigan 4-1, and then that confidence spiraled into Michael Carrick coming in. The arm around the shoulder, the fine tweaks, the good training sessions, building the confidence, bringing in the right players. It's like just a domino effect that's coming around, coming and coming and coming. And then the next thing you know, you see Boro in a really good position. So the man management side of things from the coaching staff and the group and the club is in a really good position. So when you do tend to see really positive things at that front, then you'll tend to see it on the pitch as well. So I think the small tactical tweaks bring us to a back four, but that confidence aspect confidence is huge in football, and I think we had just an abundance of it from January, and that's probably the reason why we went on the run that we did, because the players were just absolutely buzzing and just finding really good moments to play good football in as well. So yeah, just a mixture of everything, to be honest, from that. But yeah, probably confidence in the man management side of things is the one thing that I'd probably say is the reason why Boro end up the way they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Another reason, Dana, was the how well you did off the loan market. Ryan Giles, who am I thinking of? Archer, of course, coming in January. At Ramsey as well. Is there a concern, perhaps, that losing some of those loanees it could be a challenge for Borough to try and overcome?
Yeah, mostly because of their impacts. I mean, you mentioned Aaron Ramsey there. Did not expect that impact from him. I really didn't, and he just kind of blew everyone away with his goals and his assists, and just how easily he fit that system. It was, he fit it like a glove. And in terms of transitioning from a January signing as well, to have that much of an impact in such a short space of time was, again, I used the word unprecedented earlier. It was unprecedented for Aaron Ramsey as well, but the impact that they made. I mean, Cameron Archer getting into double figures in half a season, we barely get that in a full season from a Boro striker. So that probably just epitomises the impact that he made. Zach Steffen as well, fit in the system, the distribution out from the back, the calm composure on the ball, playing that goalkeeper position in the modern way that we tend to see from certain teams. And Ryan Giles' wand of a left foot. I think there was always this anxiety that when those players inevitably left, it would be difficult to replace. Positionally and in terms of numbers, we've replaced some of them, most of them, in fact, bar probably Archer and Giles. But it's not all about numbers, is it? It's about their impact. So with Silvera, with Rogers, with Seni Dieng, can they make that impact or similar impact and, fit the system how those players did? That's the question.
Yeah, I have some reservations about this, Johnny, because when you brought in Aaron Ramsey, fair enough, Dana was saying that you weren't expecting to make quite that level of impact, but he had a good half a season at Norwich City. Similarly, Cameron Archer had previously had a great loan spell at Preston North End. Whereas I look at somebody like Seni Dieng, for example, he's not necessarily coming off the best of seasons at Queen's Park Rangers. I think there's another player who's one or two names that have escaped me just now that are kind of coming in a little bit colder than they might have been 12 months ago. Do you see that as a smart move from the club, the ability to see the bigger picture in terms of interpreting someone's potential, or are you a little bit concerned that they maybe don't have the same momentum behind them?
I'm not concerned because we're not finishing the market. I think we are going to probably add 4 or 5 more to the current group that we have. But the players that we've brought in, like they are coming in as potential, trying to sell them on a higher end for profit. And just on Seni Dieng that you mentioned there, around like him having a poor season last year. The context is, like he is a goalkeeper that can play out from the back. He can get off his line. He's very good at probably building up play. And at QPR last season, they started off as I would say possession based, building up from the back, and then to flip to Gareth Ainsworth style football probably isn't going to suit him, right?
Yeah,
And
that's a
then
great
when
point.
you're facing a lot more shots, there's probably more room for error on that front. But I think the underlying numbers suggest that Dieng is a good goalkeeper. But what we want to see, and I think is in that initial first 5 or 6 games, is can he do the same thing as Zach Steffen did in terms of his distribution? Distribution is so key in Middlesbrough's play and how we want to get up the pitch and create those like false transitions
False
and
transitions.
yeah,
I'm
so a
curious now.
false transition. So like it's essentially where you play out from the back, and then as you play out from the back, you get through the first line of press, and then as you get through the first line of press, the players tend to run back from the opposition. So it's kind of like a counter attack, but it's not. It's like a sort of false transition. Who would have thought it?
Okay.
He loves
But
saying that on our pod, does Jonny?
yeah, so
I know,
it's
to be honest, it's far too technical for me. You'd need to explain it like
yeah.
5 times for me to quite.
I can get you a visual. I can get you a visual anyway. But the underlying like thing is that if he can play out from the back, then that's a really good thing. The second side of it is if we have a good defense, then that should hopefully, like nullify quite a lot of his like disadvantages to some extent. And then as you look up the pitch as well, you've brought in players. And then one of the things last year about Boro was that if, you locked out Giles on the left-hand side and you weren't getting the cross into the box, or you were trying to have that box midfield, you were nullifying Boro to some extent, right? So I think what
It's
we've
weird
done...
that, if you don't mind me jumping in there, Jonny, it's weird that sort of dynamic, because we were having the exact same conversation about Middlesbrough the year before, because the whole conversation was that if you nullify Isaiah Jones, Middlesbrough have got nothing on the left side because Neil Taylor isn't that great going forward. You thought, oh, problem solved, we've signed Ryan Giles. Isaiah Jones actually has a drop in form, and now you've got Tommy Smith as the right back, who's a little bit like Neil Taylor, or a bit more like that. But I suppose it's like, can you have everything? Can you have fullbacks who offer everything going forward and simultaneously have the balance that allowed you to make the progress that you did once Carrick took charge?
Yeah, so you can, obviously, like, I think getting a balance is really difficult in football, right? But I think what
Sure.
we're looking to do this time around is bring in players that can play multiple positions and have different types of strengths. So then as the game goes on, the dimension and the way that we play could potentially change. So I think it's just creating a different outlet and something to think about for a different team. I will and do think that will strengthen further. I don't think these players are going to play all the time, but I think when they do, they're going to create something different. And I hope we can definitely see that, and hopefully that can, get rid of if you man mark Giles or you man mark Akpom and create that box midfield like Coventry did, then that's not a bad thing, because we'll have something else to combat with. So I think it's just adding another layer to Boro's game, which is really, really good to see.
Yeah, it's so interesting how certain tweaks can be massively beneficial in some ways, but then in the wrong context, they can also become a limitation.
Yeah.
It's like a continuum, isn't it? You never quite get to the perfect system, but you can always work towards it. So interesting. But Dana, I want to come back to that dynamic that Jonny was talking there about, possibly moving to a box midfield or something that makes Boro even more unpredictable. Do you think that almost risks taking something away from Chuba Akpom, because he benefited so much from being the go-to guy last season?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, Jonny, were you talking about a box midfield from the opposition or from Boro?
From opposition. So like Coventry was a fine example in the semi-final second leg, where they just went in the midfield,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to get space for Akpom to play in.
Yeah, we'll probably stick with the same midfield just because of how good Howson and Hackney were. Talking about, again, the theme of being unprecedented. Hackney's just the way that he came into the team and really took his position and made it his own, and he's got the number 7 shirt now, which is absolutely completely understandable and well deserved because of how good he was last season. You don't touch that midfield. The balance of it was really good. Obviously, there's question marks over Howson long term or even mid term because of his age, but the basis is there, I think, for that Middlesbrough midfield. So yeah, it's got a good balance, a good blend between, Howson, that, to be fair, he was receiving the ball on the half turn a few times last season, was Jonny Howson rolling back the years. And
You
then
sound like
with,
you're really impressed by that. That's quite a
yeah,
standard thing for a midfielder.
yeah,
But
I mean, not in our midfield under Neil Warnock, God Christ, but it's just so, we've got a midfield that can just allow that transition to be seamless, whereas in previous teams, it wasn't.
yeah, no, and hopefully Johnny Howson under Michael Carrick again. I suppose it underlines how Michael Carrick can get different levels out of players, which is really encouraging, I think, for someone in their first permanent manager's job. I suppose, Johnny, let's explore that theme of Johnny Howson, in terms of, is there the danger that his form might drop off a little bit once? There's always that question mark once a midfielder gets towards mid-30s. I think he is now. Maybe you could have that same conversation about Tommy Smith. Is there a concern that some of those experienced players might drop off a level?
I said this the last 3 years about Howson. It keeps getting better, which is strange, to be honest. But you need to have like someone to come in. I think when these players are coming out of form or they need a rest, I think there's definitely room for us to keep adding to the midfield and also to the right back position as well. Dijksteel was very, very good when he played there at right back. He's a right back by trade, but then got put into more of a centre back role. when we played three at the back. So I'm not really concerned about the experience side of things. Do I think we'll add experience? Absolutely. I think we'll probably add about 3 or 4 like more experienced, with quotations, because experience could be anything, right? But all the demographic players will probably be added to Boro's team in the next fortnight, probably. So I'm not concerned. I'm really not concerned. But you can bring in all these players, you can build the excitement, but the eye test is what matters, right? That the first 15 games, that's when you'll kind of see where Boro are at, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about Riley McGree, Dana, because I feel like he's probably someone who maybe goes under the radar a little bit outside Middlesbrough because he didn't necessarily rack up the big numbers. But I think as someone who's so energetic and makes those driving runs, I thought he was a bit underrated at my team, actually, Birmingham. Do you think that he's a slightly undervalued component to this Borough side?
Yeah, from the outside perspective, but I think Middlesbrough fans understand his importance to this team, and he was especially crucial towards the back end of last season where there was injuries, and he himself got injured, and I think he was a big miss for the time that he was out. He just fits the system so well because he's so technically gifted, and he just plays so well with the ball at his feet to be able to bring other players into the game. And also his position, he's playing on the left, but he's not a left winger. He will cut inside. He plays an almost a central off-centre number 10 role, if you like, and he is so crucial to that because yes, he might not get high figures in terms of assists or goal output and that kind of thing, but I think if you look at that too much, you're almost limiting yourself to who's a good player and who isn't. And I think Riley McGree is a good player that unfortunately for him is not getting the goals and assists that maybe he should. I mean, last season I think he might have got like 5 goals. I think I can't quite remember exactly, but he's got a lot more to give. But outside of that viewing of goals and assists, just a really important player to this team in such a specific role. I think if you were to take Riley McGree out of that side, I think the quality of it in terms of building and trying to create would be lessened. But having said that, and this goes back to Aaron Ramsey, when he came in, he supplemented that so well that when they were both playing in the team, Ramsey on the right, McGree on the left, or vice versa, they switched mid-game sometimes. They just complemented each other so well. I think that's the word. McGree complements this Middlesbrough team and this Middlesbrough attacking ensemble so well.
It's a great point. Sorry, go on.
So I was just going to say, Gav, I'm glad that sometimes a lot of people look at the goals and assist numbers, that he doesn't rank that highly because he is so good, Riley McGree. He's very underrated as a footballer. And I'm just glad that people don't really see that too much because we've got a bit of a gem in him. So yeah, we can keep that quiet from there. Riley McGree's rubbish. We don't need it. No one buy him. Honestly, you just don't want him.
Absolutely. But I think on a serious point, I feel like the fact that Riley McGree are so and Aaron Ramsey last season were so sort of team orientated in the sense that they'll both make runs that aren't necessarily great for them getting the big numbers, but are great for creating space for the team. And I think that's just absolutely perfect for the equilibrium of the team because Jonny, that allows someone like Chuba Akpom to just build the team around him, and that just worked perfectly, the dynamics last season, didn't it?
Oh, it really did. It really did. I think Middlesbrough just were perfect for a lot of the games last season, and it was a bit unusual for fans because we were, we're not used to us scoring 3 or 4 in a row at home. Do you know what I mean? So it was very strange for us to see that, to be honest. But genuinely, there was times last season where we would just switch it on. I think the whole game probably sticks out in my mind where we were 1-0 down. It was a bit rigid, wasn't too great, and then it was just like a switch, and we just blew Hull away in the second half. And I think that when Middlesbrough had the ability to do that, it was just incredible, really, really good, and it shows that compliment in your peers and in your strengths that you can beat anyone in the division, and that's what made us so good, to be honest. Just that compliment of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So impressive. Dana, how are you feeling about the situation up top at the moment?
Oh, it's intriguing because I think our starting striker, at least at the beginning of this season, will be Marcus Forss. And so long as we can get Marcus Forss the chances and supply him with these opportunities, then I think he will do pretty well in that position. Obviously, last season he was playing on the right and managed to get himself into double figures, which again, I mean, 3 Boro strikers on double figures, who'd have thought it? It was still just crazy for us. So I think he will be the starting striker next season, at the beginning at least. I don't really know. It feels like depth-wise, we definitely do need another striker, because at the moment it's Matthew Hoppy, who had a very indifferent loan spell at Hibs last season, and Josh Coburn, who might be shipped out on loan again next season to a League One team. Or
Really, League One again, even though he's impressed in League One last season.
I was going to say there League One or maybe a Championship side, but I don't really know, to be honest. I mean,
Maybe
Josh
a top
Coburn,
end, maybe a top end League One side, possibly.
yeah, top end League One,
Yeah.
definitely. I think he's probably of that quality, because he's, you know, a fantastic finisher in himself. But I think we will make a striker sign. We have to, when you look at the depth there, unless Matthew Hoppy has a Chuba Akpom-esque season in which nobody saw it coming, and then all of a sudden he breaks all of these records. But I don't think you can expect that. So listen, it would be brilliant to get Cameron Archer back, but that's not going to happen. I think for me, he is a Premier League quality striker. I wouldn't be surprised if Sheffield United tried to bring him in on loan, for example, given their lack of options up front. But you never know with the transfer window, Gab. You really, really never know. So I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a signing. But going back to what you said earlier, if it's a loan signing, then we're kind of maybe back to square one there in a certain regard, in that it's a temporary option. But maybe the long term there is Josh Coburn. So a little bit of a balance.
Yeah, hopefully Coburn can maybe at least get an opportunity to show what he can do in pre-season, and then maybe postpone the decision whether or not to loan him out until later in the window, so that he gets maybe a chance in the cup even to show what he can do. Jonny, talking of young players coming through the academy, Boro have obviously previously had a great reputation for bringing players through. Who are the ones at the moment, following in the footsteps, of course, of Hayden Hackney, that you're really excited about?
Difficult one, because I think it's a really difficult one for young players, because you think that you know that the person that's going to come through and be the superstar, and then it turns out it's someone you've not really had an eye on for the last 18 months. We did give a few debuts out towards obviously towards the end of the last season. For me, I don't really, honestly, I couldn't tell you. I know we've got a few players that we've brought in. Encramar as well is probably a prime example. We've brought him in. Jeremy Sivvy is probably someone who I'm excited by, but I think he needs to go out on loan and getting some more experience on that front. So it's difficult. It is really difficult. But I think Josh Coburn is for me, probably the golden goose for the.
You've heard that expression before.
Well, yeah, I'm caught up with loads of them, aren't I? He's the golden goose to be the one that really breaks the mold. I think Boro fans are really excited by him. I think he's the last striker probably since Danny Graham, which has excited Boro fans for a young player to come through. So yeah, I'll probably say him. I know it's a bit of a cop-out answer, really, because you want a gem to come through, don't you? But I definitely think that he is someone who could potentially, make a name for himself this season, the Championship, if he gets the opportunity to play. Whether he does or not, I'm not too sure. But also, then just to mention, Matt Crooks can play up top as well, so it's just another name as well. So we'll see what Boro do, but I think Josh Coburn's the one that I think every Boro fan wants to succeed probably in this season.
Yeah. About Sonny Finch. Sonny Finch is another one, that I think you missed out there, Jonny. He's been with the first team for pre-season. I think he's 17, striker. England Youth International. I think he's the one from the academy from under 18s level. I think he's made the jump to the under 23s now, or under 21s, whatever they're called. He might be one to look out for. Certainly in cup competitions, he might be given a chance. So, and I think he got his debut, didn't he, towards the back end of last season. He came off the bench in one of the games at home. So Sonny Finch is definitely one to look out for as well.
Nice. Well, hopefully he can get himself a good loan move next season and continue to develop. Dana, talking about this sort of balance of youth and experience, it feels like that's the theme that Boro are wanting to go down in defence and midfield, where you're going to have your sort of experienced figures like Jonny Howson and Darragh Lenihan in midfield and defence, respectively, and then you'll partner them with a dynamic midfielder like Hayden Hackney and a sort of quick ball playing centre back partnering Darragh Lenihan, because obviously for Carrick's style you're going to need to want to partner someone like Lenihan with someone who's got those ball playing techniques, and that looks like that's informed your recruitment so far.
Yeah, we need to strike that balance. I think one of the things that I've heard from a lot of Boro fans so far this summer is that we don't have the experience, but I completely agree with Jonny that we will add that, and it's just about trying to complement it. But I mentioned on the podcast before that just because we brought in young players this summer, Silvera, I think is 22, Morgan Rogers is 20, Alex Gilbert's 21. That doesn't mean that they can't make an impact in the present. Now, it's all about Carrick and how he coaches them to try to maximise the potential and bring it more into the present. So I think we can definitely see them make an impact this season, and it's just about probably being patient with them and giving them that opportunity. I probably agree with what a lot of people have said, that maybe the first couple of games of the season we might see a few teething issues with these players, new players to a new team, plus they're inexperienced to a degree and maybe naive, and they're raw as well. But that doesn't mean that they can't make an impact. To be honest, last season we saw great impact from young players, Ryan Giles, Cameron Archer, Aaron Ramsey. So there's proof there that they can make an impact now. So it just comes down to Carrick. It really does. And I think Rob Edwards did really well with Luton in trying to maximise their players and their assets and building them up, because they've got players in the Championship that are probably almost, I don't want to be disrespectful, but part of the furniture in this division. But he made them made them play at a much higher level. So that's what Carrick needs to do.
Yeah, for sure. And as much as I think when you go for young players in the permanent market, you're not necessarily there's less guarantee of quality, I think it's fair to say, than there is in the loan market. But
That's
the
true,
advantage, the advantage, Jonny, is that you can build a more sustainable squad that can grow together over a certain period of time, and you've then got the saleable assets. Do you think that's the exciting thing over the signings like Silvera? Is it called Silvera? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the name.
Silvera.
Sammy Silvera.
And Gilbert and signings like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what excites me about Boro at the moment is definitely that the amount of talent that we have, like we're signing, but also what's coming through as well. I don't know why, but Pharrell Willis came into my brain after as soon as I stopped talking. Well, a youngster who played against Blackpool. Again, a winger, a load of talent. But I think what Boro are trying to do is just build a youngish squad which they can sell on for value. And it's exciting for Boro to have these type of players come in, because a few years ago we'd spent about 40-50 million. Appreciate that wasn't the net spend, but we brought in Britson Belonga, Ashley Fletcher, Martin Braithwaite,
George Savile, 8 million.
George
Don't forget
Savile,
that.
8 mil, Aidan Flint for 7 million as well. We like to throw a little bit of cash about, and that took us absolutely nowhere. And what you'd find is that we were buying players to suit a manager, and we didn't have a director of football, and it was costly. So when the next manager came in, it was even more costly because I didn't like them. But now we've changed that approach to let's bring in players that suit Middlesbrough Football Club, and then we bring in a manager that can suit that system and maximise their approach. And that is much more sustainable than doing what we've previously been doing. So it's a nice thing to see. I mean, Boro fans have needed this for a while. Kieran Scott is doing a great job with the recruitment team, and I think you can see that Scott's just making us into a 21st century football club, because I feel like we were kind of, still
living in the dark ages.
Not dark ages. I think it's just a case of we just needed to evolve a bit more. Do you know, like the times of bringing in Ravanelli, when just going manager to chairman, bringing Ravanelli and Emerson, Janino, Mendy, all those great names. But now it's probably a lot more number
Was
orientated.
Mendes even that good for Boro? I feel like he was
How
kind of.
dare you, Gab? How dare you?
Okay.
He was sensational.
I'm sure the 03-04 season he scored like the first goal of his season against my lot, and that was like in March. I'm sure. Anyway,
I remember when he played against Manchester United, and he was just amazing. He scored the first one from outside the box. I think we won 4-1 that day as well. So,
we did.
but yeah, what a superstar he was. But yeah, we've changed. We've
and
changed models, and it's going to
Macaroni
work.
was a great signing.
Yeah, 8 million. 8 million we paid for macaroni as well. Madness.
Yeah, that didn't. Yeah, so I think Kieran Scott has done a great job, Dana, and I suppose it probably helps him. I think that he's got his relationship is with a younger coach like Michael Carrick, who I think is more amenable to the state of play in the sporting director of football head coach sort of model. Whereas when you have a manager like Chris Wilder that's managed for the last 20, 25 years, they kind of have a set expectation of how things are going to work. And when things don't work like that, they actually get a little bit disgruntled, I would imagine. So I think that really works in your favour, doesn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, I can't really blame Chris Wilder for his approach there because, as you said, when you work in that way for so long, and you've also been successful in that way, then it's almost like he probably demands that or expects that to continue. But to be honest, the question has to be, why did we bring Chris Wilder in when he didn't fit? And maybe Chris Wilder sold them a complete lie and said that, oh, yeah, well, I'm fine with all of this setup. And then obviously what transpired, he wasn't. But yeah, it definitely seems that we've got the right pieces of the jigsaw and Carrick is committed, whereas Chris Wilder wasn't, especially when we wanted him the most. There were obviously with David Moyes and West Ham, there was a few murmurs of maybe he might get sacked and Michael Carrick, the sort of ex-Hammer narrative there, he might be brought in, but it seems like Michael Carrick is here for the long term, and that's really good. And it's just good that we've got a system and a setup behind the scenes that works. This has been something that we wanted for the past couple of seasons now because we didn't have it under Neil Warnock, we didn't have it under Chris Wilder. So if things aren't working behind the scenes, then how can you expect it to work on the pitch? So it's good that everyone seems to be singing from the same hymn sheet, that it's all collegial behind the scenes, and that there is a certain amount of probably challenge, because I feel like there does need to be challenge behind the scenes, but also compromise. I think that's probably the most important thing with the setup kind of like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the important thing for any club when appointing a manager, especially if you've got a director of football or equivalent, is that the person coming in actively wants that, as opposed, because it's one thing to sort of say, "Oh yes, I'm fine, I'm happy to agree with that," but you've kind of got to be a little bit detective in those situations as well, and kind of be aware of their intentions, because managers at that time in the interviews, they're probably going to be wanting to move things in a kind of positive sort of amenable direction. And I think that's where clubs have to be very smart about things, and it looks like they've got the right person with Carrick, which leads me, Jonny, to the question of how good is Michael Carrick from what you've seen so far, and how far can he go in management?
He's very good. He's very, very good. Michael Carrick was an excellent footballer, and people just can't believe how good he was. Very, very intelligent, and also he's worked at Manchester United for a number of years as well. So he's definitely built up not just a very good playing IQ, but a management IQ as well. So for him to come in, and I think to hit the ground running the way he did, was amazing. Really, I think no one expected him to do so well. But what Boro needed at the time was probably that development coach anyway to get these players going again and firing. So that was amazing for him to come in and do all of that. I was saying earlier on, his man management skills, and Jonathan Woodgate deserves a lot of credit. Aaron Danks, probably, who doesn't really get enough credit. Aaron Danks is probably hands down one of the best coaches in the country. He's regarded so highly across the top 4 divisions.
Is he first team coach or development squad?
Aaron Danks is a first team coach. He came from Aston Villa, and so he was in charge of Villa when they won in the Premier League, and exactly the season that they was just gone and they won 4-1. And then we ended up bringing him in. But what Danks is very good at is he also worked with England setup as well. But he's very, very, very good, and I would not be surprised if Carrick was to ever go. We promoted Aaron Danks up. To be honest, I think he's just really well regarded around the game. But in terms of Carrick, unreal. Jonathan Woodgate, a very, very good coach. Aaron Danks, very, very good coach, and we're still adding bits and pieces around the team as well. Obviously, that we're going to, obviously coach and staff like off the pitch as well. So, like off the not out of like the match day team, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But yeah, there's so much to be positive about the Boro, but we know how quickly things can change. We might
Sure.
get found out this season, as the phrase goes. So, and then Carrick's
I
the
hate that
worst thing in the
phrase.
Oh, I was
Carrick's
just
the
going to say, it's like you're getting
Hate
found
I
out.
had to have like the quotations. Really had to like show the quotations on that, but
Yeah.
things might not work out as much this year under Carrick. So then it's like he's the worst thing in the world. So it's very fickle football, isn't it? So, but yeah, really, really good. Man management, excellent. His tweaks are very, very good, and the ideas that we're getting across to the players are very smart and very astute, and just they're not brand new things, but they just suit what we have, and that's exactly what you want from a manager. And he just gives everyone belief that they're going to be successful, and everyone knows if you've had a manager that gives you the belief, you'll run through a wall from. So that's where Boro are at, and there's a lot of confidence this season, and rightly so. To be honest, we've got a good group of players, good manager. We're singing from the same hymn sheet. Football phrase. From the stands to the pitch to the not the coaching staff, the people above that as well. So everyone's united, and hopefully we can have a very good season with a very good manager in charge.
Fingers crossed for that. Dana, how happy are you with the structural and ownership side of things at Middlesbrough at the moment?
Yeah, you can't complain. There are far worse clubs in the Championship that are going through issues. I think obviously your club have very recently, and probably still going through it, right? So yeah, I think absolutely fine. I just want to mention or sort of add to what Jonny said there. I think the man management side of Carrick has definitely been important, because picking up a rather down team. I mean, I was at the CBS Arena for Chris Wilder's final game, and it just looked like a completely different side to what we've become accustomed to, and what was a very, very good side or the season before last. And it felt really weird being there, because I was a bit crestfallen, thinking this isn't the Middlesbrough that I've come to know under Chris Wilder. So quite clearly things going on behind the scenes was affecting things on the pitch, and we saw it unravel. But picking up from there, Michael Carrick coming in and just lifting the spirits, I think, firstly, and Leo as well. Leo has a huge part to play in that, because he is someone that you want to play football for. He's the type of character, the type of man that you want to fight for on the pitch. So I think he really set the foundations in place for Carrick, and then going from there, obviously it's the tactical tweaks as well, and making sure that the players played with the confidence and they got things right system wise. But man management is so important in football, and I think we've seen it this season, because they've just gone from strength to strength under Michael Carrick.
Yeah, Carrick, Danks, and Perkovic could be quite a strong management team, and we've seen that already. With that in mind, we've discussed much of this already, because it's felt like a very positive show. What would be the reason, Jonny, for me to be hugely optimistic about Middlesbrough for next season and say they could get top 2 this season?
Oh, Gabby, you're going to say that we're going to get promoted as champions again next season?
I might do.
Yeah, don't say that.
Tease.
Don't say that, please. Look, what's exciting about Middlesbrough? There is a lot to be excited about with Middlesbrough. There's always a team as well that suffers playoff heartbreak and then comes back the next season and really, hits the ground running and gets promoted the next one. I'm excited now because we've got the management. We still got the key players, because Akpom, there is still a chance he could go. But yeah, we've got the foundations there. We've got the management team. It's all set up to be a good season for us. Now, I don't want to say any more than that, because I might jinx it. But if we add the right players in the next fortnight, then maybe there could potentially be a chance we hit the top 2. But this season's stacked. You know, there's so many good teams. Like, even the teams that have came up are good. So it's just, I'm intrigued by the whole division this year. And if we get promoted, fantastic. But I think playoffs is probably where we'll be.
Oh, really? Dana, what do you think about that? Are you sort of managing expectation a little bit there and thinking playoffs is the best you can do?
Yeah, I don't think it's the best we can do per se, but I do have us in third for my kind of early day 1 to 24s. But yeah, I think it is going to be a difficult season next season because we've lost those loan players that did propel us into that position. I think we were trending pretty well before they came in, but you know, Cameron Archer was probably the final part of the jigsaw that just propelled us into the playoff place, or probably more solidified our place in the playoffs more than anything. And if we could replace that type of quality, then yes, I mean, I completely agree with Jonny. We do have the foundations there, and we have the base to be able to build on. And as long as, well, to be honest, I feel like one of the key players to bring back is Ryan Giles, actually, because he had such a good relationship on the pitch with Chuba Akpom and off the pitch as well. They were good friends. Chuba was telling us how he was telling Ryan Giles to come back to Middlesbrough and pestering him every day about it. So hopefully Ryan Giles can listen to him there. But he was really key just to create all of those opportunities that we ended up scoring. Because it's fine and well having players that are good finishers, but if you can't give them that service, then it falls
also,
flat.
Giles is such an exciting left back because not only has he got that direct running ability, he's also got the end product as well. So to have both those things in a left back, and then to have the relationship, I suppose, with Riley McGree as well, who when they complement each other so well, that's brilliant. Dana, what would be the reason for me to be actually a little bit cautious about Middlesbrough and say they could drop out of the top six?
I don't know, to be honest, because as I've got us in third, I don't really have much of a reason. I think this is a cop-out answer, but from a Boro fan, it would be that typical Boro-ness, wouldn't it, Jonny, where we kind of, whenever we have that glimmer of hope, it's snatched away from us. Taking it out of that perspective, I think because Chuba Akpom was such a big part of our success last season, and certain other players as well that are no longer here, like Ryan Giles and Cameron Archer and Zach Steffen, it's probably maybe that transition from the summer signings, whether or not they can make a similar impact. And with Akpom as well, he didn't travel to Portugal for our pre-season trip because of a knee injury, and he told us off air on the podcast that we had him on that he picked up a knee injury in the second leg, the first half of the second leg against Coventry. That had Boro gone to the playoff final, he would have been out for that because that injury would have sidelined him for that. So it's a little bit of a red flag for me that he's got a knee injury, or had a knee injury, has got a knee injury again. Could that potentially affect his season next season? Obviously, we're all hoping that it doesn't, but it's just a little tiny anxiety there. So given that he was such a big part of Boro last season and our success, that might be a reason to be a little bit less optimistic. But of course, there's more cogs to the very good machine that is Middlesbrough Football Club. So you'd like to hope that we can kind of just move around that a little bit.
Let's hope that's the case, and maybe if there is a drop-off from Chuba Akpom, you can have that trade-off where other players step up and produce that productivity and maybe even make the team even more unpredictable. Jonny, Dana, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to discuss Boro with you. What are your plans, Jonny, for the Boro Breakdown for next season?
Just to keep chatting, I think. Just enjoy it. You know, I think we're still trying to get more guests on before the season starts, and also just continue to grow as we are. Really, we're doing very, very well. I think the lowdown videos, I think we released 5 videos in 3 days. I think
Crazy.
That was a bit tired from that still, but I think we'll keep chatting. We know everyone, people know where we are now on the podcast providers and YouTube and stuff. But if you want to listen to about Boro, then you know where we are. So that's our plans, just to keep chatting.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. Well, make sure everyone go subscribe to the Boro Breakdown because you've been smashing it for ages. So thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck to the Boro for next season. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate Middlesbrough Summer Deep Dive with Jonny Bullock and Dana Malt from the Boro Breakdown. Thanks to you for watching at home, and we'll see you again very soon.